Herbert's 100 harem. He watched that which was above. He had no way to voice his concerns. It was no danger, for it came no closer, but it should not be there. By day it was an unsettled feeling, by night a false star, but there was no way of knowing how or why it was false, only that it was false. He dreamed often, tried to find cause for things there were no cause for, tried to understand, but could not. It was forever just outside his talons, like a particularly slippery catch. Could not sink his beak into the feast he sensed but could never fully find. He should be hunting. He should be hunting fiercely. Yet something drew him to stare and watch. For something was coming. Whatever that thing was, it was not a thing that was known, a thing that was either a beast at impossible distance or an insect near was approaching. There was no buzzing. It was no bug. He unfurled his wings and felt the wind beneath. He pulled at the other that danced along his feathers and found himself further. It was in thinking of such that he began to be lost within his own mind. Thinking and thinking and thinking of things. He should hunt. It is time to hunt, and only proper to hunt. The distant thing is growing closer. His talons flex with the desire to be grasped around a great prize of the waters. There is great value to them, and surely the females would. The distant thing is wrong, a stone but not, shimmering and shining like a cliff polished by waves, but soaring. Stone does not soar. There is a twisting to it, similar to when the hunt draws to the close, but different. The same things are twisting, but in different ways, many different ways. He twists the winds and shifts with his wings to circle the strange knot stone. The knot stone opens and something small comes out. It is shaped wrong to be a bug. It is too small to eat, too small to be more than an itch. It watches him. He feels it watch him. Then he feels something else emanating from the being, like warmth from the sun. Then it moves and is above him. There is no will to harm him. There is a strange respect, though, tinged with something else. Eagerness? The small thing is eager. He veers away from it to observe it all the better, and it veers with him. The tiny thing lands upon his feathers, scarcely ruffling them, and begins to move up. Then it sees the tiny thing all the clearer as it hangs over the side of his head to look him in the eye. It's a monkey. It's a bald monkey with a strange face, but a monkey. He's seen these things. Tiny little creatures that climb trees, hunt fruit, and eat carrion. But this one is different. It has some strange, shiny things in front of its eyes, things it moves down to see his eyes directly. Why does it need those? Is it some kind of protection? Why would anything have eyes so weak that they need guarding? Then he senses something else from the tiny being. Cooperation, seeking, food, friendship, kinship. It seeks to. The tiny thing races down his beak and leaps off. He can sense it not quite fly as it veers through the air in its dive, angled towards the sea. Has it spotted prey? Is it helping him hunt? He chases the tiny thing, easily swooping after the less graceful form. It is so small it can only be seen at less than half a wing length away, but he can sense it much further in the twisting. Curiosity and a need to know boils off his feathers as he keeps the tiny thing close. It has no tail, but seems perfectly fine without one. He then senses an answer. There's almost an idea. An idea of large tailless monkeys scavenging in water. The fur slows them down so they slowly lose it. The bigger muscles make them sink so they grow lean. The food is delicious and feeds the mind as well as body, so they grow wise. So he recalls his own history right back at the odd thing, though it is of his own life and not of something from before. Speed and strength needed increasing knowledge and skill to wield properly. How the twisting thing allows him to do even more and become more still. Then he spots it, churning just beneath the water. The prize is enormous, flourishing with life and wondrous in scope. The swoop is swift and twists the world. The grab is good, and the tiny thing that guided him to it lands upon his head. His wings pump with all their strength to carry the great prize upwards and further. There is exultation in both his own soul and that of the small thing. It had desired to see him succeed. It wished to see him thrive. He lets out a mighty call to let the entire flight see. Only one comes at first, but their echoing his call brings others who each echo the call in turn. There is a deep respect for a prize so enormous, so clearly worthy. It was not any time previous that he was caught in wonderings of the world. Yet now, this small thing had led him to a flawless victory, a perfect prize. Querying cries are sent about the tiny thing, and he responds with a cry of kinship, and remembers how it guided him into the twisting as he felt the tiny thing do. For a moment there are only caws of confusion and uncertainty. Then the twisting around the flight shifts. A cry of wonderment erupts from his beak as he's suddenly surrounded by a maelstrom of understanding. Each and all of his kin sharing the mysteries of their minds at once, and hearing the mysteries of each other in turn. Then from the strange tiny creature perched between his eyes, exultation and triumph. The small thing just had a great victory. He did it. He fucking did it. Contact. Proper contact and communication with a species without language. The Jalic birds saw and accepted him. They understand him, he them, and they each other. He not only just passed his final little test from Isma, but he's left a boot print in the history of the Jalic a mile wide. He facilitated language. Sure, the indicating calls were interesting, but still bestial, more akin to a barking dog. Now they were a full language with the force of axiom behind it. He could feel their minds, and they could feel his, and the accompanying feeling of glory. There is a question from the flock, and he sends out the trail he just showed them. How it allowed his own people to go from barely more than beasts to stronger and wiser beings. How teaching each other allowed greater and greater wisdom to be passed down and carried. How it grew more and more until even the least lived greater than the best once had. The question shifts to if it will work for them. He confirms it. They can share their strength and wisdom with their hatchlings and each other to become greater still. To become more than merely hunters, but a scholar, a teacher, beings of wisdom and knowledge. The path to glory was before them. One of them requests aid in finding a catch as the one he helped has, and Herbert smiles. They're outright asking for guidance. This is huge. He checks his communicator. There are several more potential massive prizes for the birds, with another 2 nearing the surface. He bids a farewell and wonderful life to the one he helped and leaps off into the sky, diving towards the one that had called to him. The others part to let him pass without issue. The young one that called to the guide gets exactly what he hoped for as the strange being hurls itself through the air to join him. It was so strange. The creature, the guide, could not fly but understood the air so clearly as to have no fear of falling. So very different than other beings. Is that what wisdom and learning bring? Is that the boon of shared knowledge? The guide had shared knowledge with him and led him to a guarantee of hatchlings. His line would continue and there would be chicks to care for later. Now the guide had wished him well and went to aid another. With a sense of gratitude, he shifts his flight to wheel towards where the females were claiming the best places to lay. His enormous bounty still carried in his claws. They were tiring, but he thought to the guide and fed the twisting into his talons. They strengthen, and exhaustion washes away. What else can be done with it? He will have to show his chicks and whomever he takes as mate this trick. They must know. It will strengthen them greatly. He looks back and sees the males of the flock following the one being aided by the guide. There is a cry from the other direction, and he turns to see the females having paused to watch him. They had gone still at the sight of his offering. There was one he had considered many times before, one that would no doubt have exacting standards, standards he had surpassed. He focuses his gaze upon her and binds the twisting to his intent. The females seem shocked when they not only see but know whom he intends his offering for. The beauty shifts nervously on her claimed nest. This day has brought surprises for them both, but will end with their futures secure. He descends to land next to her and flutters back to leave the prize between them. She looks down in clear surprise and does not pull back as he nuzzles her. He uses the twisting to help guide her own, to encourage her own strength, so that there is more strength to be passed to the chicks. It emerges. Her surprise, curiosity, and joy sings from her mind. More beautiful than her immaculate plumage is the song of her mind. He tears a chunk off the prize and passes it to her. She takes it gladly. As he feeds her, as is proper, as he demonstrates he can provide without fail, they both come to a conclusion as their beaks brush against each other's. This will not be the only mating season together, but the first. In the distance, there are cries of exultation as the guide leads others to more incredible prizes. Whatever form of being it is, it will not be forgotten, not its generosity nor its lessons. His mate croons at him and he turns to regard her. He pulls the twisting through his memories and leans in to press his head against hers, recalling everything of the guide, the strange thing from the stranger thing. It sought only to aid him, and did so without fail. He resolves to tell his chicks of the guide, and he can feel his mate do the same. But first, she must be fully fed. As he dives to the third Jalic bird, he smiles. This had gone well and beyond any expectation, and his visor was lighting up in all directions with the implications of what was going on. Legally, he was still in the clear. He had not harmed the animals in any way. He has not marked them in any capacity, and the closest he had gotten to committing a crime was interrupting their hunting patterns. But he was helping them hunt, guiding them to game, not an illegal act. If anything, he was helping feed the beasts, which was perfectly legal. Although some of the zoologists had tagged in an anthropologist or two and several psychologists as they try to figure out exactly what the long-term effects on this stunt are going to be on the species, they had been forced off the chat when they invited in some of the chaplains to try and figure out exactly what kind of god he would be worshipped as. Popular voting was shut down quick, but most were saying that Thoth being a bird-headed god would work perfectly for a bird brain scheme. Of course, that had started a bit of heckling across the messages before basically everything but basic tactical readout and requested information had been cut out, which was good as being called a thought over and over would have been distracting. The Jalic he's guiding swoops down and pulls the gigantic fish out of the water. The things are huge and would be able to take a hefty bite out of a school bus. Considering the Jalic see these huge things as merely food just goes to show how fierce the majestic beasts are. Unless they shrink as a species, they're going to end up as the largest sentient race in the galaxy without competition. He gets a notification from Yzma. Apparently, he's caused a bit much in the way of shenanigans and is being extracted. He sends his farewell to the flock and bids them to share knowledge and strength. There is a sense of mourning at his leaving, but he sends assurances that he is not passing, but merely returning home. The Jalic fly in formation around the ship sent for him, and he dives off and onto the vessel, landing easily. He waves his farewell and bids them good hunting. The flock disperses to scan the ocean and seek prey. He expects a stern look or a scolding as he enters the ship. He was supposed to hunt with the Jalic and instead taught them. Instead, Yzma's her usual smiling self. "You are witnessed, grandson. Well done, Grand Patriarch," she says. "Excuse me." Of course she was planning something.